you are and whoever you are. So welcome Adnan, welcome Shaykh. You know, we have a number of possible ways we can proceed. I think the first one to consider is, you know, considering where we are today in the world and the challenges that we face.
Welcome, Adnan. You know, we have a number of possible ways we can proceed. I think
we have some echo on the line.
We have some echo on the line.
It's quite delayed. We have some echo on the line.
Is that removed now? Apologies for that.
Quite delayed.
Bismillah.
Let's try.
Let's try.
Should be gone now.
So let's start with the.
Is that removed now? Apologies for that.
There's quite a long delay, a few seconds delay. So
It's very long.
let's try.
Let's try.
Should be gone now.
So let's start with the.
Is that removed now?
There's quite a long delay, a few seconds delay.
Very long.
Let's try.
Let's try.
Should be gone now.
It's like it's looping, isn't it?
So let's start with
There's quite a long delay, a few seconds delay.
very long.
Let's try. It's like it's looping. Isn't it?
So let's start with
We're repeating ourselves.
That's the condition of the day, maybe. That's what. That's a good.
Apologies. Try one more time.
Bismillah.
There we go again.
Bismillah, Bismillah. Okay. So let's start with jumping right into the issues we've said about. What about the nature? What is the nature of the human self, the I, the individuality today? What is its? You know, how do we place ourselves, our individual self, in a world that is so full of, well, seeming challenges? Maybe, you know, Shaykh, now you could comment a bit, and Adnan also, if you would, and I'll jump in after that.
Well, it's quite obvious to anybody with a bit of reflection that our world, our experience, our conditioned consciousness is based on dualities. No matter what you and I or he or she experience, it's one of two and of other multiplicities and dualities. So this is the consciousness we are in. You like it, you dislike it. You are born, you die. You are up and down. You're awake, you're asleep. Choose. So this is the nature of consciousness of the normal, reasonably intelligent human being, which has evolved over billions of years. And with the rise in intelligence, this is who we are. And we respect intelligence because it leads us to higher consciousness. So this conditioned consciousness emerges from boundless, eternal, divine, if you like, consciousness. So we are here to practice, accept, deal with a higher consciousness to which we all are traveling towards, which is supreme, high, divine consciousness. Each one of us will experience it after leaving the body and the mind and all of the other disturbances behind. That is the meaning that you will meet your Lord. You will meet the paramount power of light in existence, pure, supreme, divine consciousness. So this is where we are heading to. The more we work towards that end, the more we are acknowledging the flow of nature and evolution and awakening and enlightenment. So that's all what it is. Each one of us have a responsibility to do that. Otherwise we'll suffer. So the drive is out of the local to the universal, out of the limited, short duration to that which is eternal and boundless. That's all what it is. We have to accept it and deal with it and flow with it. Otherwise, we'll suffer. And we're designed not wanting to suffer.
Yeah, maybe I should with in relation to who am I or what is this personal identity. It's a story. It's a web of relationships and activities that is being conditioned as Shaykh, an original light that has been colored. That coloring appear as time and space, appears as an imaginal entity that appears or that thinks that it's separate and acts in relationship to a world out there. But that is a story. It's a story. It is my story. It's each individual story. And each story is unique because it's embedded in its own culture, in its own time and space. And with the realization or with coming to understanding that it's embedded within a universal context, not just an individual cultural context, but a universal context. And that universality is beyond time and space. It's unconditioned. It is the light of Allahu Nur as-samawati wal ard. And that's what comes to us through revelation. Of course, the individual by itself is locked in or kind of in this seemingly storyline. But then from the mercy of the universal, the absolute, revelation comes to us through these illumined beings. And so we have the necessity of having the balance of the conditioned and the unconditioned. And we come to know that we are the meeting place between the two, and the inner and the outer. So the original oneness was split, as the Quran tells us. And that split is whether it's universal in terms of the universe itself, heavens and earth and all that, but also on the individual level, the subject and the object. Everything in existence has that two aspects of the inner and the outer, or the meaning and the form. And as Shaykh says, is that we have to accept that, and the whole business is about the balance of the two. You cannot deny one of the other, otherwise we suffer. And and from there comes the aspect of time, historically and in the present. What the question is, what are we seeking? What are we looking for? And what that? It is that original boundlessness, that original blueprint of who we are and what reality is. And that is also the original motivation for everything that we seek. We seek the boundless. And from that seeking comes both the expansion of the universe and the expansion of our own existence, whether it's through nations, states, civilizations, individually as knowledge. It is all that comes from that impulse to know. However, without the balance that we are outwardly bound, but inwardly unbound, will be kind of all over the place. So that duality needs a balance and needs in a sense, a tawheed, a unification, a gatheredness. And with that, there can be the possibility of realizing the offering. I'll stop here and maybe we'll continue.
Yeah, beautiful. I think if we look at the relation to that which is unbounded, as you're talking about, Adnan, that has remained the same throughout human history. So the relationship of my individual self to that which various cultures have called the soul, the Quran calls it the ruh. Same in the other Semitic languages. However, I should say, and in addition, the nature of the individual self, the nafs, as it's called in the Quran, or nefesh or nafsha, as it's called in the Bible, that has changed over a course of long human history. And it's changed so gradually that we hardly know. We hardly know it. We can't really recognize it, and even most evolutionary scientists don't recognize it very well. That the I, the self, the perceiver, is not the same as it was. At some point, there was this big turning point, which we've talked about, and different cultures talk about as the Adamic consciousness. That is, the scientists talk about the self-reflexive part of the brain, so the self is able to consider itself, if you will. We begin to know that we have a self. Before that, it's as though, again, comparing the developmental progress, it's as though we were children in our mother's womb. And then for a year or two, we're sort of just surrounded and part of everything, and everything is part of us. And then gradually we individuate, if you will, this self, this I want, I can, I must, give me this, give me that. And so human consciousness over, you could say, hundreds of thousands of years has gone through this really almost identical process. But now we're in the state where we're theoretically, the nafs, the individual self, is fully grown. So now what do we do with it? Do we use it? Do we misuse it? Now that we're facing the nafs, the individual self is facing mortality in so many different avenues. If it looks outwardly, can it turn back inwardly? Can we turn back inwardly, so to speak, you see? Can we turn back to that from which we came and to which we're returning? And this is really the challenge right now. And so all of the institutions that we had relied upon to keep us sort of within these bounds, as you're talking about, they seem to be not really holding up very well. So I'll turn things back over to you, Shaykh, and see if you want to go anywhere from there.
The last million or 2 years have been very critical in what you have just described very beautifully. That there has been metamorphosis and movement and change and changing. The nafs was a reflection of the soul, because the soul, the light of the divine, is too powerful. So you need a shadowy, slight reflection to be able to see it. When we are looking at the sky with full light, we also try and hide a bit of the light in order to. So it was a natural process for many hundreds of thousands of years, as Adnan said also. But eventually, there comes the point whereby the nafs, for those who are reflective enough, those who are in constant state of meditation, prayers, silence, being in the moment, they will realize that it's no longer needed. That shadowy reflection or the moon with respect to recognizing the sun is no more needed. There is no real you, as Shaykh Saadi had been trying to really show us. There is no such thing that is durable, sustainable, definable in any way. It is a mixture of various little shadows connected, whose main drive is survival. But once you know that your ruh is eternal, then even that is removed. There is no fear of survival. So what it is all about? It's no longer valid. So you'll become truly the child of the moment. And the moment is emerging from timelessness, the divine. So every moment has got in it a high potency of the intensity of the divine touch. So that is why we prefer to be in a situation which is alive. That is meaning it drawing its energy from the absolute, from timelessness.
Yeah.
But comes to time and disappears again. So I think we are at a point in human evolution, human life, that we all have to accept the responsibility of being present in the now, of being accountable for whatever we intend, we think, we say, we do. Full accountability with the light of timelessness, if you like, in the eye of God. No longer is going to be coming to us only in a flash or in a big impact after death. It's here. So that means you are truly present, present, present. That means through these billions of years and movements and ups and downs, different revelations and religions and practices, I think humanity is at the point of accepting this amazing gift of the present. So, which we call the ultimate divine offering. Presence of the divine.
Yeah.
Timeless, eternal, perfect, beyond perfection, away from the suffering. If we don't do that now, clearly suffering individually, collectively, nationally, globally, universally will take place, is taking place.
Is taking place, yeah.
At the political level, at every level you look. But we want continuity. We are obsessed with life. We are all the time concerned about the longevity or durability of life. And we all the time fear the end of life, whereas life is eternal. Life is the manifestation of the divine. The divine is timeless. So we are obsessed with it, quite understandably, until each one of us know that life is the ultimate gift that's been given to us. And it is timeless, eternal, boundless. And my life is not separate from that life. Once I know that, then the fear of death is removed, reduced to begin with, until such time. Death of who? It's the body, which is supposed to die anyway. The moment it's born, the moment is closer to death. Entropy. But entropy meaning that whatever exists is acknowledging its origin, which is dissolution of that makeup that it has identified with, moving from a specific identity to the timeless, eternal reality. That's all what it is. With intelligence, with education, with reasonable diet and whatever reflectiveness and the ability to be silent, I think more and more and more people in the millions will understand that. Then, without the fear of death, without the anxiety about subsistence, persistence, continuity, then you are present. Then you will act justly. You will act correctly. You don't have guilt going back and forth. I'm so sorry. Sorry about what? That means if you're present now, and whatever you're doing, the role you have been given by the cosmic author, you and I are not authors. We're players for a little while. Given a role, speaks, be silent, serve, help, whatever. That role will move. That's all. So you are, this presence in the moment is the ultimate gift of gifts. So, and this is where I think we all are. And it's not a new religion. It's the culmination of all religions. It's the culmination of all of human and superhuman and angelic and higher endeavors for us to realize that the so-called I has in it an earthly touch, has in it a biography. There is a birth and there is a death, but insignificant in comparison to the amazing, impossible to fathom power of life. That's it. Then we have truly have no anxiety, no animosity, none of the usual human stupidities, dramas, and all the political shenanigans and all of it will vanish without even calling it any more honesty. You're straightforward. You have nothing to hide. There's no you. It will vanish. Now, all of those, if you like, volumes of work that have been written on the divine attributes, which are magnificent, they all become obvious. The divine attribute of generosity. You're generous, you're correct, you're just, you're accountable, you're in the moment. You're not simply giving in order to be appreciated and admired. This is your nature. The nature of God is total generosity. Otherwise, life would not have touched these existing creatures. The highest generosity is that. It is a treasure, beyond any boundaries. So, but once you appreciate it, you're almost struck with an impossible state of to be able to describe it. You lose yourself just as well, because most of our suffering is acknowledgement of this self, building this self. I'm more important, more famous, more recognized, more remembered. Remembered who? How can you forget the fact that you are alive? What's so important about remembering A, B, or C and their birthday and all that rubbish? We're really wasting a lot of time and energy chasing something that nobody can truly in any way benefit from. It's all downside, nothing upside. But we can't talk to people because, oh, he's very old, or they call it, he's very religious now, or he is, monastic, or what do you mean? Every one of us is a carrier of a monastery, of the heart, of the soul in our heart. That is who we are. Each one of us at best is a guardian, is a housekeeper of a divine light that's in you. And if that housekeeping is not good enough, the soul will leave. If you and I are not caring for this amazing flame of life in us, with a big accident or sickness, it leaves. So we just say he died. No. Correct what you say is that the soul wasn't happy anymore to stay there. It left. That's it. That's correct. No tragedy, no sorry. No. The soul left. The hospitality wasn't good enough. That's it. Or
Moved
the
on.
age of the house became too old. No, I don't want to be in this very old house. Things don't work. This doesn't work. The eye doesn't work. The senses don't work. Goodbye. Finish. Once you see everything through the eye of the lens of that light of oneness and the soul and the divine, it's all clear. It's all wonderful. It's perfect. Quran defines us that if you can't create something better, go and do it. You come back exactly to what it is now, including one's personal, disappointment, because you had expectations in the wrong place. So you're disappointed. Perfection upon perfection upon perfection, until you are swooning with that, if you like, true intoxication with the presence of the divine light. That's all what it is. That's why I think intense suffering globally and the recognition of it, which is due again to our modern way of life and connection, communication, internet, and all of the other things, is a precursor to, I think, more and more people awakening that I am not who I thought I am, but partly only I am this human. There are certain physical, chemical, biological, electromagnetic, if you like, energies that are swirling. And that's about it. So I am ready to leave the body and the mind and all of that any minute. I have not designed it, it's not mine, and I am destined to be liberated. Who is the I now? Is the soul, is the spirit. To be liberated from the semi-mobile septic tank. That's it. You have to laugh.
Yeah.
If you don't, you're taking so serious. Look at us. We are very serious seekers, or Sufis, or religious.
Uh-huh.
So we are at best housekeepers, hosts of a divine entity which is not fathomable, called ruh, soul or spirit. That's all. I think we are beginning to enter into that zone of consciousness. This minute.
So, what does this mean then for our various institutions, religion, governments, things like this that people have relied upon for many years? I know Adnan's people also look for truth in science, and I know you're involved in science and technology. So, I mean, are people able to find some of what Sheikh's talking about through their scientific exploration? What's your take on that?
Well, as Shaykh said, I mean, once we come to understand the nature of this realm or this reality, that the whole of creation is a reflection or a shadow of the eternal. Therefore, it carries within it or a manifestation of qualities that are not finite. Of course, the self attributes everything to itself or thinks that it owns these, but ultimately with the understanding that this is merely a reflection, a shadow, and therefore it's changing, it's finite, it's not durable. And the whole message of the sacred traditions and religions is to remember, recollect the eternal. Because no matter how much progress, so-called progress in time, whether technologically, politically, and so on, it can only be finite and it can only belong to that shadowy part of the world. And the message of the sacred, the revelation is this is not a place of suffering, as should be a place of celebration once you realize that eternal aspect of you. Then the struggle becomes futile. However, historically, again, because of the overwhelming preoccupation with the shadow as the only reality, or then the self seeks to grab or to expand in terms of power, knowledge, and the modern age, technology has become that. And technology provided a unique kind of a break, a kind of pseudo transcendence of the time and space reality. So no longer, I mean, we're now in a more or less a global society, so nobody has exclusivity to suffering or even happiness. So we're all in the one thing. So there is no more kind of expansion in lands and stuff. However, technology provided a different kind of expansion of the boundaries, which is, for example, what we have now, cyberspace. Cyberspace provided a technology where time and space is broken into. Here we are globally connected. Each one of us is in a different continent or a different and even times. We are all in our own time bubbles. Yet this meeting, this information space, cyberspace or whatever they call, breaks down this boundaries of time and space and gives us a sense of kind of transcendence. However, it's only in it's an information space, right? It is not a transformational space. Again, there is, and that again, these levels of progress, so-called progress in time, provides even more veils and more distractions for the self. So it gives a sense of a progress. Okay, now we have technology can provide all the solutions. However, that's not true. The level of mental problems are unprecedented. So there is in a sense, information overload that in a sense veiled the transformational, so as you said, mentioned before, unless we realize that the sacred message of the religions is that ultimately the real problem is inward. It's not about outward solutions. They can help. They can, however, they can also become like everything in duality has the good and the bad. This is wonderful. Technology is wonderful. This brings us, I mean, if it wasn't for this technology, the past 2 years would have been horrendous with the pandemic. However, there's the other side because of the overwhelming information overload. Mostly is useless. Mostly it's a distraction. We are more now in the selfie age rather than in the selfless age. So it's kind of, so that balance has to come up, and that's, I mean, the value of at least the traditional is or the religion institutions maybe is to provide that as a sacred space, the sacred space or the sacred, that this reality is ultimately a place of expression of the divine, and we are part of that. We are part of that. The Adamic consciousness is the consciousness that's able to reflect upon us and ask these questions, and part of the problems and the suffering is that is that we are constantly questioning and reflecting, who am I, what is my purpose, what is that. So the disappointment and the disillusionment are also a blessing. Without that, I would not ask anymore. So everything, every dark place has its point of light. And that's what the reminder has always to be there, that you are not what you think you are not this meant to be struggling for no reason until death, but this is an experiential, a transitional phase in order to know and understand the origin and so on.
Yeah. Well, again, I think there's a sort of, it's a seduction I see happening for various people that you could say confronted with different problems in the world, in the ecology or politics or this or that. People feel that they want to change things for the better, and yet they have people have an expectation that, okay, I'm going to do some good in the world and I want to see results from that good. The first, I find, often does come from deep within the self and touching the soul. This, as Shaykh talked about it, just to act properly. I mean, you don't have to call it anything, honesty or this or that, but just to act properly and then to feel what is actually mine to do. But then the pitfall is believing or living under the illusion that I'm going to see change based on what I do. And I think that leads to disappointment, that leads to disillusionment, that leads to, people feeling depressed. Well, I don't see any results of what I'm doing. But honestly, did we ever actually see any results? I mean, did we ever really know what the effects of our actions are going to be? Yes, people could thank us, the people could write us, here this and that, and thank you for this or that, but honestly, do we really know how their lives have changed, or how the lives of those they have touched have changed? We don't really know. We have our hopes, we have our expectations, but again, these expectations are what lead to disillusionment with the world situation, and the feeling that one is just being sort of, one can't go anywhere, one can't do anything, one just sort of wants to hide one's head. And if one were hiding one's head sort of in retreat or khilvat, that would be one thing. But, this is people who are then getting into some severe mental depression, or mild or severe, depending on what their situation is. And it's unusual. Well, it's not unusual because it's been going on for centuries. Often we find people in the worst possible situations externally. They seem to be quite quite sanguine about where they are and what they're doing. They're actually able to be more capable than people who live in privileged circumstances and then feel depressed because of all that's happening in the world around me. So again, it's all about me. It's all about the nafs. It's all about the external. As Shaykh says also, we're looking for the new. We're looking for the fresh. We want fresh food. We want to go to new places. We want to experience new things, extreme sports, extreme this. I mean, it's all fine. I mean, it's an impulse for the freshness that is the soul, the eternal within us. The only difficulty comes when it's all turned outwardly, and when it's turned toward the self and outwardly rather than towards the soul. And you could say inwardly, but really there's no inward outward in what we're actually talking about. So I'm still curious about what you think about religions, Shaykh. Now, what's your take on religions?
You know better, but what I surmise is that these have been based on amazing individuals who were within conditioned consciousness, but higher consciousness, divine consciousness, engulfed them, touched them, burnt them, made them utter whatever they did. And I think there must have been thousands upon thousands of people who've had that link or bridge. And until it permeated throughout humanity, and then with the advent of the Prophet Muhammad, there was no more news. That's why La Nabiyya Ba'di, it also means there is no more news, no more prophecy. Here it is. There is only the one, and that one is behind everything known and unknown, seen and unseen, the nafs and the ruh. So my job is to rise to that with effort, with suffering, with crying, with hoping, with wishing, with praying, until I know that all of it is designed by the perfect cosmic author. And at best, I'm given occasionally a bit of a role, and sometimes no, it doesn't matter. It's not in my hand. So the nafs becomes more and more subdued until it actually becomes a trace of the past. The nafs of a baby doesn't exist. Of a little child begins to grow. Of a teenager grows very strongly. Of a 30, 40-year-old person, the nafs now becomes personality, his character, all of the other rubbish description we give. And then it begins to become a burden until such time you lose it. You're fortunate enough, you can switch off everything. There's no nafs. The nafs was there to guide you to the light that made it this shadowy entity, which was from the ruh. So the nafs led you to that from which it originated from, to the ruh. So now it is a trace of the past. In fact, you think there's wonderful trace. It made you suffer. It made you fall from ego, from rubbish, from all of it. So you realize that it was necessary for it to be there. So it's a friend. It was a friend. Doesn't exist anymore. It's gone. A friend came, did its mischief, and left. That's enough. Not until it really you find it was, thank you very much. You made me fall and suffer and go blow myself up until I was pricked like a balloon and people laughed and I was serious. Shut up. There's only the ruh. The nafs was there because of that. So then you see the whole thing as it really is, not being in the bottom. That's how it is. How could you ever have a notion of that light of lights unless you begin with a shadow that intrigues you and points towards from where it originates? That's it. And that's through the nafs. So the nafs is your first teacher. Until such time you found it was a very clumsy clown who made me fall into so many traps that I thought it was very important. The honor they gave me, the family I had, business, the conscience side, the generosity, what rubbish. These are all attributes, like many other dozens of the ruh. of the divine. So then you have an inner smile. Initially, it is a very nervous laughter when people laugh loudly. It's quite ugly. They try to convince themselves, like everybody else in any party, because we like to celebrate. Celebrate what? The truth that you and your ruh is not separate from the divine truth. That's worth celebrating. But that's why most parties end up in disaster. Physical, otherwise, fires and all kinds, because they are clumsy attempts to something that is sublime. We love to be all joining together in a magnificent global pilgrimage. But to where from where? You know, a few thousand years ago, there's a place at a time and so on because of the movement of the earth around itself. But now it's perpetual, ever present. So I think we're at the cusp of something colossal and very weighty in terms of its impact upon our life. Once you're no longer in need, consciously or otherwise, to lie and to present this something, all of those distractions that come from deception upon deception upon deception. Don't you know who I am? Well, nobody knows who they are. Well, of course you don't. Wow, truly it is. The ultimate thing is that it is all about a ruh. It is a mystery that from the heavens, from the unseen, comes into this earth like a fire. Suddenly the flames come. And as long as there is food enough for it and a place for it and so on, it remains. But once it's too windy to think or nothing, it leaves, gone. And this is who we are on this journey. Once you see it, then you have much more energy available, much more presence. You won't commit the same usual mistakes that we all do. It's repetitive because it becomes habitual. So lies become habitual. Personal, whatever image of oneself becomes habitual. Until you truly give in all to your ruh, then that becomes habitual. Then you are a ruh. Yes, thank you very much. I think I'm about to leave in only 2-3 minutes. Don't be good. Celebrate. I'm returning to the home from which I emerged. Everybody wants to go home. Take me back home. Oh, mama, mother, whatever. I want to go home. I'm insecure. I've had a lot of bashing. Why do you respect yourself? Because of the ruh. They didn't respect me in that place. I had to run away. I had to divorce 9 times because the husbands were not good enough. They bashed me because they're not aware as to who they are, and they're not aware of who you are. If you know it is a ruh, a soul, then you respect it at least, or turn away. We've been living in a very murky way. And that's why the global suffering is globally powerful. And I think from it will probably lead to the next part. I am in conditioned consciousnness. I am afflicted by memory. I do remember. I would have liked to be more wealthy, more intelligent, more handsome, more pretty, more what. But it is not. And but these are none of me. Where am I in deep sleep? Oh, what is it? Oh, there is life in you still ticking. Oh, so I am really life. Oh, all that. We have not been educated. And religion has become so structured and ritualistic. At least there is something. So I think it will be self-correcting. Adnan will help us on this, really. It will self-reorganize. It will have to be. Because we need nourishment. Who is the we? The ruh. So that is the real art. And what is this nourishment? Is to be totally adored, totally respected. That's all, because it's durable, it's everlasting. That's all. But for that, we have to train. We have to be with people who are like-minded like us. That's why we've been enjoying each other's company, because we're not just on the same wavelength, not on the same chapter, not on the same book, but the same, if you like, laser, if you like, movement. It's the present. The present is immense, intense. That's why we respect it. We are, once we touch that, then it's beyond friendship. We are, if you like, touching the origin from which we have emerged, to which we return. Therefore, it is very important. That's it. Yeah, I'm very grateful to have met you. Mm. Mm.
We have a lot of moments of silence if they kind of.
How wonderful. Not enough.
Yes, it's an
Mm.
indication of the source, I guess. It's the
Allah. Alhamdulillah.
once we understand that one of the kind of greatest thing with the Quran is it tells us that everything in creation is a sign, ayat, and that just that is a indicates that, you know, this is not a stopping place. A sign indicates or points to something else, points to the beyond, the destination. And all of our endeavors in this life, sciences, knowledges, and all that are all ultimately signs. They're models of thought models, including our models of the universe, physics, chemistry, biology, psychology, and everything. Almost every tradition have their model of what they think at best to try to kind of approach or point to what is beyond. What happens is that whether it's religion or science and all that, well, we forget, or we kind of, or at least maybe not the founders of that, but people who come later and study these, they mistake the models for the reality. So we end up with these wonderful maps, but there are so many different maps they might have. However, a map is a map. A map is to kind of tells you, okay, this is the path to take. You don't stay with the map and try to analyze it and discover what it's made of. So every model that we have, you know, they're all wonderful. I mean, there's is an ayah, and an ayah, as it says, as Quran says, travel in the land, look, analyze, observe, see what you, where you came from or where you're going. However, the ultimately is that you are the map. Ultimately, the me itself is a model, a metaphor for what is there for the eternal. You contain all the qualities of the universe, whether it's physically or metaphysically. Physically, there's nothing that is no element that anywhere in the universe that's not within our physicality. Isn't that most amazing? So you want to understand the stars? Study your body. You want to understand the galaxies? It's here. And ultimately, also, this model also contains the metaphysical reality. Again, that point of, you know, the ruh or the soul. Again, it points to the eternal, and it's within you. And I guess once you have kind of put away all of the distractions of information, and there's only this present. So everything exists in this present. And everything that we considered as time is nothing but the reflection of memory. Because and everything that we consider as the future is the imaginal. Okay, what am I doing tomorrow? I need to plan this, plan that, plan that. It's another. It's all this the meeting place of the outer and the inner senses that make up the so-called me. I am all this web of relationships. However, they're all in the here and the now. Yeah, so I mean, once you come to that understanding, then in a sense, a lot of these distractions fall away, and that's what again, what the ayat, what all of these signs point to. وَفِي أَنفُسِكُمْ أَفَلَا تُبْصِرُونَ. And in yourself, can you not perceive? If you want the secret, you want the treasure, it is through the self, for the imaginal self that leads to, points to the shadow of the true self, which is not, it is doesn't belong to me, or doesn't. Again, we made that in terms of, you know, the religions, as you mentioned, becomes hijacked by this false self and becomes another form of identity, cultural, my religion, our group, our tribe. And of course, anything false will not lead to anything unless it returns to its original realization that the so-called you is only a shadow pointing, which is another way of saying this is a model, a sign, a map for you to get to the right direction, you know, point to the, take the path to its origin, which is not in time and space. It's the path of higher consciousness, self-knowledge, and so on. Because anything that we seek ultimately is already here. The seeker is only the shadow, the map, the model that is the great ayah, the great sign that points to the eternal. Inshallah.
It seems to me that these beings who have, as Shaykh says, been ignited at various times in this short history that we actually know about, and that someone had the nous, you could say, the inspiration to write down some of these things. But these beings who were ignited, they showed very simple things, you know, entering silence, entering the eternal through some sort of silence, various ways across the world to lie on the earth, you know, put your head beneath your heart, kneel down, prostrate in various ways, you know, so that you realize you could say in unison with the day. If we're looking at our outward reality, we're looking at time and space, in unison with the sun rising, coming to its zenith, and then gradually setting. Okay, that's like my life. You know, my life came from the unseen, and I'm middle-aged, and let's go, we're going to do everything. And then as it sort of goes down, I'm heading towards the earth again, and, you know, that's it for this particular flesh, this particular form. And so they were reminding us of these different things. And as you say, Adnan, very, very rightly, often even these beautiful, how would you call them, these beautiful experiences get colonized, if you will, or somehow, you know, externalized. People mistake the container for what's inside the container, if you will. And that's happened in all the religions. So things go through their cycles. I think it was Ibn Khaldun that pointed this out once in terms of the cycles of history. You know, and this is no less true of civilizations than it would be of modern institutions. So these things can last yet for, you could say, 100 years, hundreds of years, but gradually they seem to be, you know, that what's holding them together, that sort of group heart that would be holding them together, that would be holding a tribe together in the, you could say, earlier part of human history, that sort of has gone away. And we find more and more people looking for, searching for, going on a path of seeking, not necessarily finding, but they hope to find, of seeking outside of these particular containers. And that also, I think, has to be some of what Shaykh has been pointing to, that it really comes down to each individual now to find their way. Yes, people can help you, absolutely. Doesn't mean you have to be necessarily an iconoclast, or I don't know if that's the right word or not, but you don't have to be a hermit necessarily unless you're called to do that. But it means that each person has to do it for themselves rather than rely on others or rely on some great leader or some great X, Y, Z peer potentate, this or that, to save us. And unfortunately, that's also a trend we see in the world around us, but it's part of the same, you could say, cycles of rising, cycles of decay, if you will. And we have to realize that we're living in those sorts of times. So, the question really boils down to then, how do we find, some pathway to what I think Shaykh has called more perpetual cheerfulness, or a sense of contentment or joy or security? How do we find that? So Shaykh, what's, you've been talking about it the whole time, so I'm embarrassed to even ask you again, but.
You're wonderful. It's security. We're all seeking security that is eternal, that's perpetual. From it comes cheerfulness, delight, joy beyond anything except bliss itself. So it is that. Secure is timeless, is eternal. And that's the nature of the soul. The Quran says, Ya ayyatuha an-nafs al-mutma'inna, irji'i ila rabbiki radiyatan mardiyya. Here's addressing the spirit or the soul. O soul, that now you are secure, you have seen dualities, you have seen the ups and the downs, and the good and the bad, and the whatever, all of the billions of multiplicities of dualities and pluralities. Now, O soul, that you were in the zone of the infinite, the boundless, having descended for a time onto this zone of duality, have seen it, now come back fully content that where you were is the right place. And that is where everybody longs for. That is home. No two, no choice, no up, no down, no beginning, no end. Is the divine life. So if you are a ruh, if you have really realized that yourself, your ego, all of that was shadows of the ruh, then the ruh is already on its way back anyway. It has seen it. He said, thank you very much. It's enough is enough. I don't want to be more and more going round and round and accusing, blaming, claiming, and find all of it is because of my ignorance. No, get back, radiyatan mardiyya, ever content, and so on. So it is about security. We seek material security, physical security, political security, financial security, emotional security, and but the soul's nature is to be secure anyway, because min amri rabbi, it is a divine state, but not a simple attribute of liking or disliking. It is perpetual. Once you have touched that zone in you, that's it. There's nothing much more. Then you will become naturally disinclined to be in the hurly-burly of day-to-day realities of human beings. So that doesn't mean you have become less human or whatever. No. The higher nature in you is beginning to take more and more of the conditioned consciousness in you. It's part of maturity. The cycle has served its purpose. Now you are ready to leave your body, leave your mind, leave your emotions, leave your silly biographies, like a snail that has left the shell. That's it. Serve this purpose, thank them all because they serve this journey. How can a heavenly entity accept being on this swirling, tiny little earth, unless it has again part of that divine comedy, part of it. So that's it. It doesn't matter anymore. Thank you very much. Thank you, body. Thank you. And can you imagine each hair? How many cells? How is it that perpetually growing, or whatever, or your nails, or this? And miracle upon miracle upon miracle. You have to. So thank them all. They thank all the time. You practice thanking them several times during the day, before you sleep, when you wake up. Oh, they're still available, so I may have still get up. Or you get up, there is a process. You have to wash this good, there's fresh, there's stale, on and on, until you are until the soul is liberated. then it becomes certain that no, it is the abode of the infinite, timeless, not within space, time, and movement. Khalas, done his job. So more entities, which are arwah, have discovered the amazing, glorious truth of reality itself, of God or Allah. That's it. That's how it is. It's a part of that process. More divine, if you like, bubbles are created everywhere in the form of all kinds of creatures. We know and we don't know. What about the angels and beyond? We're completely ignorant about it. Most of my life has been looking at creatures and animals and cats, and they have a soul. And we share with them quite a bit of the topography of the soul. But this is not all. There is a divine light that has given it that privilege of being alive. If that is not enough, nothing will do. Really, once you touch that zone, then naturally you are in celebration. Naturally you are cheerful. How can anybody depress you? Life is forever. Your life is not separate from life. The question of being depressed or cheerful doesn't arise anymore. It's another zone of celebratory joyfulness. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Shaykh Saadi, thank you very much for being on this earth at the same time. It is a big solace for as a human. And Adnan he is the ultimate, dear, dear, dear. Really. His presence is enough. I am most privileged, and I can't even begin to express my gratitude, honestly. Allah has given me the best of the best. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think we'll leave you with that, friends. I think that's a good message to leave you on, and from Shaykh Fadhlalla Haeri and myself and Dr. Adnan. Thank you for tuning in today. And if you're listening on the recording, by the way, remember that whenever you listen, it's always now.
Allah.
It's not yesterday. It's not tomorrow. It's now. So anyway, enough said. So salam, salam, salams.